I was at a talk radio convention one time. I bumped into a friend, Jim Bohannon, a much more successful talk radio show host than I ever was. And we were chatting, and he mentioned Larry King. I said, "Oh, you know Larry?" He says, "Well, yeah, we've worked for the same radio network for years and years and years. We had the same office for many years. I'd see him speak all the time." I said, "Oh, wow, Larry King, that must have been interesting. What's it like seeing Larry King give a speech in person?" He said, "Oh, TJ, it's just so awful, so boring. Every time I saw Larry, I'd go to the back of the room, find a table, crawl underneath it, take a nap." I said, "Oh, that's kind of disappointing. I thought Larry would be better than that as a speaker." You know, I'm just curious, what was the reaction from the audience? He said, "Oh, always the same. Laughter, tears, cheers, applause, standing ovation, and a $50,000 check on his way out the door." I said, "Jim, it's kind of a contrasting reaction. I don't understand." He said, "TJ, he gave the same darn speech every single time. The same anecdotes, and it got laughs every time. People remember it, they talked about it. I had heard it 1,000 times." What's the real lesson here? Larry was smart enough to know that if you're on TV every night, it's the same audience, well, you can't say the same thing. But if he's giving a speech at some major National Trade Association convention, that's probably the only time most of those people will ever see him in person speaking. So he can give them his best stuff. He told the same stories every time. And he gave his audience the best stuff. Now, was it interesting to Larry to say the same thing each time? Probably not, but what interested him is he got that big paycheck to go out the door with. That's what works for him. So remember this, if you want to be a great communicator, a great presenter, it's not about you. It's not about whether you find it interesting. You have to give your audience the best material you have. Okay, so why do I give that story? Why do I use that? This works for public speaking workshops as well as media training workshops, because a big problem a lot of people have is they do media interviews and they want to say something different each time because it's not interesting to them to repeat themselves. And then every article has different messages coming through. Well, that's horrible. That's no way to really communicate a message to the audiences you care about. You need some consistency. Same thing with speaking. Sometimes someone will give a great speech to one regional office in Mobile, Alabama one day. They got to give another speech to the identical sort of crowd in the Atlanta office 2 days later. They completely changed their speech. So all the stuff that worked really well in Alabama, now they're giving all new stuff to Atlanta, and it's not very good. When you have content that works and you're speaking to different audiences, reuse what you know is your best stuff. That is the message of this story, the whole point of this story.